Hello and welcome to Knitting 101, a crash course. I'm going to be teaching you how to be a little old lady. What you're going to need is a cat and some yarn. I'm going to start talking about a little bit about my history with knitting and like some tips and tricks I've learned along the way, and then we'll get into how to cast off and how to actually knit. I started knitting actually in elementary school. My friend's mom was really into knitting and she taught her daughters how to knit, and since they were my friends I learned how to knit too. She actually started one off for me. It's this one here. Actually isn't that bad. Was this seriously my first? Oh no, my first one's at home and it's really bad. This was, I think, in college. I got really bored and I had just some random yarn, so I made this. Thought it was garbage. It's really fun. I like it. It's a good way to not look at screens but still keep your hands busy. So if you want to watch TV or something, you're not watching TV and on your phone or playing a video game. This one's actually my favorite kind of yarn. Burn It blanket yarn, but it's kind of a thicker yarn and I really like it. With the thicker yarns, I like to use thicker stitching because you can tell the stitching on here is a lot smaller than it is on this one, because this one the knitting needles are thicker. Whereas here I use the small needles. If you do have thicker needles, you're going to need thicker knots because you need to be able to fit at least 2 knitting needles in each knot. Another one of my favorite yarns, Isaac Mizrahi crafting yarn, and it's like the softest yarn, and it's kind of like eyelash yarn. Eyelash yarn is really thin string with like little eyelashy type things hanging off of it. This has more of like fluff. The eyelash are kind of just more like little yarn strings. They're nice because they kind of cover up the stitching so you can't see the individual stitches. And this one, it just kind of looks like a fluffy mess. But this one I love. I love. It's so soft and it's like long and it actually looks like a real scarf. But it's my softest scarf by far. This yarn makes these kinds of scarves. These ones are the infinity scarves. They're actually the quickest to make and they look really cool. Just use a mattress stitch here and you flip it over once, so it kind of just always has that layered sort of look. This yarn I actually also used to make a baby blanket. I did one big square and then I did 4 small little scarf things that went around with that. I think this was going to be the end of the baby blanket, but it was like a weird length or something, so I just turned it into this. It's one of the ones where you can just do it around your ears, just like a teeny little scarf. It was probably 6 or 7 stitches across. Just go to your head size, then mattress stitch it. And then I made a hat once. It took me like 500 tries, and one of the hats somehow was like folded in on itself. I can't even explain it, and I left a little thing so I could put my hair through it. It kind of sucks. So that's knitting for me. I started at a young age. I really liked it. It's something I do for funsies. So I'm going to get into how to knit, how to cast off, and how to like knit in this video, and then I'll make a second follow-up video with how to bind, I think is what they call it, whenever you end the actual stitch. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if it's helpful or if there's something I could do better for when I make the binding off other one. Peace, love, and knitting. We're out. Now we're going to start casting off. Knitting is basically just a whole bunch of slip knots. Also, you may need a cat. First, what you're going to do is you're going to start with the slip knot, but you also need to make sure that you have enough string here to start your first row. So depending on how long you want your rows to be and how loose you want your knots to be depends on how much you'll need. I'll probably use about this much for a whole cat's length for about 20 or so knots. You're going to take it and cross it over like this so you make a little fishy. You'll grab the ball end and bring it up and tighten it here so you'll have your loop. You'll stick your first needle through the loop and then tighten it a little bit. You don't want it to be too tight. You want to still have a little bit of room in here to be able to fit a second needle. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to hold it in your left hand and your ball end will be on the right side. So this is our tail end. And you're going to take it, you're going to wrap your thumb. So go under with your thumb, pull it up, take it on this side of the thumb, so now you have another loop here. So this is basically just another slip knot. Then you're going to take the ball end, place it between your thumb and the needle. So now the end you just put here is dividing it, and then bring it over the top and then tighten that a little bit. And make sure this one still is kind of just a little bit loose so it slides evenly and nicely on your needle. So you're going to do that as many times as you want it to be. Again, you take it in your left hand, you go under with your thumb, bring it up, stick it under your thumb, and then take this string and wrap it between your needle and your thumb. Put your thumb on the top, pull it over. And if you take an actual scarf, you can see that it still is going to be a little bit spaced out. And then 20. Okay, so once you have it the length that you want your scarf to be, it will end up getting a little bit wider, but just make sure it has some pull to it and it's not really tight, because if it's too tight, your string might actually get too much tension and actually break. Now this part, what you can do is you can trim it if you want, so it's a little bit less, and then I just knit it into my scarf so that way I don't have a loose end hanging. I'm gonna go get some scissors and I'll be right back. Okay, so here's where we're gonna start incorporating our second string. I'm just gonna cut it probably so there's about this much left, so it's enough to where it'll actually get knitted into there and I won't have to worry about it falling out, but not too much that it just is super annoying. So we're gonna cut this off, give this to her, and now you're gonna bring your tail end over to this side. And you're gonna bring it around through the bottom, so all of your knots will be on the bottom part here, and that's where your scarf will grow. Get your second needle, and this is where we get into the nitty-gritty of everything. So this is how you'll actually be knitting until you get to where you want to end your scarf or whatever you're making. And what you're gonna do is we're gonna think about a little Julius Caesar. And in Julius Caesar, Caesar and Brutus are like besties till one day Brutus stabs Caesar in the back. So we're gonna stab, say this is Caesar and this is Brutus, okay? Okay, so he stabs Caesar in the back. So you're gonna stab that first knot and bring your needle to the back. But Caesar is a little bit smarter this time, so whenever Brutus stabs him in the back, he says, "Et tu, Brute? I don't think so," and wraps a little noose around Brutus's neck. And then what happens? Brutus dies on top of his noose. And you think, oh no, Brutus is dead, but we're gonna throw a little Romeo and Juliet back there, and Brutus is now going to come to life and take that knot right back from Caesar. So that's what we're gonna do. So, oops. And I'm doing this with the 2, but once you get into it, you'll just be doing the 1. I'm just doing the 2, so the little tail end can go into the scarf. So stab the first one, bring it to the back, wrap it around your little Brutus, let Brutus fall over and pretend to be dead, and he falls on top of that one, and then it comes off. So right now you see this will probably be the 3rd knot, we'll get it taken in there. So we're gonna stab it, wrap it, he dies on top of it, and then comes back. This will probably be easier to see whenever we're just doing this one, so now we're on the 1. So we're going to stab, wrap, die, and then come back. I'll show you this technique on one that I've actually started a little bit more on. This one was just so you could see how to start casting off. So for these I have this one, it's just so I can store it easy. I can store the part of the scarf here, stab these into the ball, and then keep them that way so I don't have to worry about anything stabbing me or anything falling off a needle. That's why I prefer these ones, and then they're smaller so they're easier to work with and manipulate. So your scarf will always start on the left, so always start with Caesar, and then here's Brutus. He's got the whole ball, but you know, he's a little greedy. How I hold mine is I wrap it around my pointer finger, wrap it around the ring finger, and then grab it through here. So we're gonna stab, wrap, die, and come back. Stab, wrap, die, and come back. This is Caesar, this is Brutus. Brutus stabs Caesar in the back. Caesar puts the little noose around Brutus's neck. Brutus dies, but he's not really dead, and he comes back. So I'll do that again, like extra close. It is kind of like a loop knot, where this is kind of the loop part, and then this is the one that you're gonna take. So what you're doing whenever you pull on it, this is the one that you just wrapped around. And it goes like this. So if you were to take these 2 and pull with this gone, it would completely slip out. So stab it, wrap it, You can see it falls on this one and then comes out here. So if you see in here, this one is like a slip knot. This is the one we just did. So if you took this off, this is the slip knot here. So you pull the ends and it comes out.